Welcome back. So retired Constitutional Court Justice Yvonne Mokgoro passed away on Thursday due to health complications that related to a 2023 car accident at the age of 73. Mokgoro is one of the key figures in South Africa's judicial history, having been appointed as the first black woman to be appointed onto the Constitutional Court bench in 1994. She served for 15 years and contributed to various aspects of the law, locally and internationally. Well, joining us this morning to pay tribute to this giant is former Constitutional Court Justice Albie Sachs, who served with Mokgoro at the Concourt since South Africa's dispensation of democracy. Justice Sachs, good morning to you. And of course, condolences. I can just imagine how difficult of a time this must be for you. Your initial reaction on Thursday, hearing the news?
You know, you speak about Yvonne. I'll call her Yvonne. She was Yvonne to me and to all of us on the court. And you speak of her as a giant. In fact, she was a little woman. And yet that somehow made, with a huge heart and a sharp legal brain. You know, she'd been in a coma for such a long time. In a sense, it was a release for her body, for the family, and for all of us, knowing that she was never going to recover. But huge, huge, huge sorrow. She was such a lovely person and such a loved person. There are lots of judges who are respected and admired, but not all judges are loved. And Yvonne was just loved by her colleagues, by the cleaners, by the security staff, by everybody. She radiated Ubuntu in practice, and it came through into her writing. Sharp intelligence, but that enormous empathy that gave a very special quality to her presence, her style of work, her relationships with others. So the sadness is immense.
Yeah, I can just imagine that it is, Justice. And if you'll allow us to go back into time a little bit, and the reason why I want to do that is because when you tell the story of the first black woman to sit on the Concourt bench, so many black women in the country sit and listen to that in absolute awe. And if we go back a few decades, if you will, I think it was on the 10th of February in 1995 when former President Nelson Mandela inaugurated judges to sit in the first Concourt. I mean, took us back to those moments and where she was, where her headspace was at in that time. I know that you were in that list as well.
Yes, you know, she speaks about it herself. She took the oath in Setswana. That was so significant in itself. And I remember her commenting afterwards, it's amazing. My voice, that's her voice, is equal to that of Arthur Chaskalson and Ismail Mohammed and Pius Langa. She was kind of aware of the significance of her being on the court, not just for herself. And she didn't come from a wealthy family. She wasn't a daughter of a judge or a lawyer. She came from a working class family, Khadashawi. She studied part-time. She did well at school. She actually met Robert Sobukwe, who was in exile banished to Kimberley, who said, young lady, you must qualify as a lawyer. Our people are going to need lawyers. So she was inspired by him. She took on various jobs. She was a part-time nurse. She was a shop assistant. You know, not somebody from that kind of background that you expect judges to come from. So what she represented on the court was more than just the first black woman. It's the first black woman from a working class background, speaking Setswana, and in a sense, speaking for the sense of justice of millions and millions of people who'd been denied their rights and who are now looking to the courts, looking to the Constitution to feel that we have dignity, we have rights. And in a style and manner of work, in addition to her writing, she had an enormous influence. For me, it's actually remarkable and in a sense very, very moving that in August this year, we expect in South Africa to have the first woman Chief Justice.
Yes.
In a sense, the wheel in that sense has turned full circle from this young working-class woman from Hadashewe swearing the oath to Mandisa Maya, swearing the oath as Chief Justice. It's a very remarkable and very wonderful journey.
You know, you mention Deputy Chief Justice now, Mandisa Maya, and I think back to when she was being interviewed to sit on the Concord bench, and one of the big questions that she was asked, and her response really stood out. She talked about how she is not just a black female judge, but a judge that happens to be a black female. I wonder if when you look at justices such as Justice Yvonne Mokgoro, that was I suppose a conundrum that they were dealing with all the time, their work and the quality of their work, and how they needed to balance that with the importance of their representation.
Yes, I'm so glad you've raised this, because somehow I feel to pigeonhole Yvonne as the first black woman judge doesn't really capture Yvonne at all and what she signified. Her sister, her great colleague, Kate O'Regan, the two of them were the joint second female judges in South Africa. The only judge in those days was Leonore van der Heever, a very remarkable, very good judge. She was the daughter of a judge. She was very, very lonely and in a very masculinist legal profession where lawyers were expected to have sharp elbows and sharp tongues and be very smart-ass and very thrusting and combative. And together, it was Yvonne and Kate introduced a completely different tone into the judicial bearing, if you like, with soft voices, quiet questions. And it wasn't simply that women could see themselves represented on the court. It was feminizing, I would say, a very masculine, tough, almost strutting kind of role and profession, humanizing it, expanding its empathy and its warmth and its reach and connection with everybody. And it came into their decisions. It was important for the interpretation of the Constitution and important for our relationships on the court. And it's in that connection that I see Yvonne and Kate having played a very significant role in reconfiguring what it means to be a judge. Now we just take it for granted that judges can be not only courteous, but empathetic and warm and responsive to the clients, to the litigants, to everybody in the court. And I see Yvonne very much in that capacity. Also, what was important in the case of Yvonne was she brought in with her life as a young person growing up in an African community. And the theme of Ubuntu wasn't just a slogan or an idea or something nice to happen. It was part and parcel of her. And when it came to the capital punishment case, she was now responding using that profound, deep African concept of Ubuntu as part of her intellectual motivation for saying to put a rope around somebody's neck and hang them until they're dead defies the principle of Ubuntu. It dehumanizes people. It destroys the individuality. So in that sense, her growing up as an African person, or person who happened to be African, happened to be a woman, had an important influence on her conceptualization of the Constitution. And it helped to give helped to root our Constitution, if you like, deep in the reality of the lives of the great majority of our people. And Yvonne was a pioneer in that respect. And maybe that was her biggest intellectual contribution, not simply being a black woman on the court, but a black woman on the court for whom the concept of Ubuntu was central to the fire, if you like, the burning of the urn of the Bill of Rights. Yeah.
You know, I need to bring this up, and I want to do so responsibly, if you'll allow me, Justice. You know, we're watching a scene play out in the Concourt, and we saw it yesterday as well, with the former president and his new party essentially going to argue what would, some will say, the finality of a decision made by the Apex Court. And the reason why I bring it up is because in the last decade or so of Justice Mokgoro's life, you'd see her, and I'd seen her at various events as well, speaking out about the integrity and the protection that's necessary for the Concourt, and certainly for the Constitution, work that she took very, very seriously. Talk to us about why you felt that was important and what you say to those challenges today.
Yes, well, I certainly won't comment at all on the case yesterday. It's before my now colleagues on the court, so I won't comment on that at all. But I must say, speaking now as somebody who's been off the court for more than a decade, I am so proud of the Constitutional Court as an institution, of the role that it has played in South Africa. It's got great international renown. We, as young lawyers, used to learn to quote decisions from the House of Lords in England and the Supreme Court in America. Now, judges in England are quoting from our court, and in Germany, they read our decisions. In Canada, they read our decisions. All over Africa, the judges read our decisions. So it's got great international renown, and it's played a decisive role in South Africa. If we didn't have that court, and if we didn't have the Constitution, every time there was a serious political clash, people would go out into the streets and beat each other up. There would be physical resistance. There would be machetes being used. The alternative is very drastic. Instead, the Constitution now, in that sense, is holding our country together. We have elections. If there is discontent, people can vote. And the Independent Electoral Commission is there to see the vote is free and fair. And the court is there to see that the IEC functions correctly. So it's not simply that I'm biased in favor of the institution of which I was a member. I think objectively, internationally, and for the great majority of South Africans, the court and the judiciary as a whole, and in particular the Constitutional Court, is playing an extremely significant role in the life of our society.
And well, yourself and other justices alongside Justice Yvonne Mokgoro had that massive responsibility of building really the weight of our Concourt. And if you'll let us, perhaps be flies on the walls, Justice, going all the way back to, 29 years, if you will. Moments that you think of, Justice Yvonne Mokgoro, perhaps that put a smile on your face that you're able to share with us, some warmth.
I've got a very, very beautiful, very personal moment. It wasn't on the court. It was the year 2002, and it was the time of the Earth Summit in Johannesburg, a huge international conference on the environment and on sustainable development. And the United Nations Environment Program in Kenya decided to have a conference in Joburg. And Yvonne and I were asked to organize the conference. And we had judges from all over the continent, very interesting discussions. And then we had a celebratory dinner in the evening. Now, judges from the African continent can be very severe. Many of them in the blazing midday sun wear wigs. Can you imagine wearing wigs?
I've seen that, yes.
Very, very formal, very, very heavy. And we decided we're going to have a party. We're going to South Africanize the judiciary in that way. And we ensured that there were good singers and a lively band. And who led the dancing? Yvonne Mokgoro and Albie Sachs. Well, she really led. Since I was blown up and I lost my arm, I've never been able to dance in the way I used to dance. I used to love, love, love dancing. Somehow with Yvonne, tall me and short Yvonne, we went onto the floor and we just glided. It was a beautiful moment for me. And the judges from, I won't mention particular countries, were like amazed. And then we started moving and they all joined in. And somehow it was Yvonne's laughter and smile and comfortable, easy joy that got the judges to drive from the other parts of the continent. So I'll remember that gliding with her. And she explained to me that she and Job had actually been masters and mistresses of dancing, ballroom dancing.
Wow.
So I remember gliding with Yvonne, the smiley Yvonne, the cheerful, the happy, and the slightly cheeky Yvonne.